Welcome friends, I'm Troy and this is Patchwork. Thank you for joining me. It's great to have you, and I'd like to welcome all of you to the very first Loresday. Every Thursday I will be discussing something from the lore of World of Warcraft. Essentially, I will choose a lore-based question that I think is worthy of discussion and give my 2 cents on it. Today's question is, was Sylvanas Windrunner a good choice for Warchief of the Horde? Before we get into that, a brief background. If you didn't already know, Sylvanas is the current Warchief of the Horde after being appointed by Vol'jin. Let's take a look.
Windrunner, come forward.
Warchief.
The lower spirits say death will claim me soon.
In the end, death claims us all. But the Horde will live on.
I have never trusted you. Nor would I have ever imagined in our darkest time that you would be the one to save us. The spirits have granted me clarity, a vision. They whisper a name. Many will not understand, but you must step out of the shadows and lead. You must be Warchief.
Alright, so not given a whole lot of reasoning for her appointment. So in order to get a better picture here, let's take a look at her history. This way we'll be able to get a clear picture of whether or not she was a good choice to be Warchief. To me, a few key points jump right out. First thing that comes to mind was this key detail during her days as a High Elf in Sylvanas. It was the Horde who burned her home during the Second War. Sure, it was a long time ago, but it's our first signs of possibly deep-seated animosity towards the Horde and the Orcs in particular. Second thing that pops out in mind is her whole dealings with Arthas. Now the relationship between Arthas and Sylvanas could be a whole video in of itself, but for our purposes I'd like to point out a few key notes. First, Arthas captured and basically destroyed her in every way possible. Desecrated her soul, made her a slave, turned her undead. The list goes on and on. She had already lived a pretty tortured existence before this, with Sylvanas burning, but this kicked it into a whole new gear. Forced to carry out his bidding, she did the work of Arthas, even aiding him in assaulting Silvermoon and the Purge of Loresday. She later made a plan to kill him with the Dreadlords, attempted to kill Arthas with a poisoned arrow, but thanks to Kel'Thuzad's timely arrival prevented this from happening, and Arthas fled to Northrend. During this time we see the first real examples of Sylvanas amassing her own army and seeing herself as the leader of the undead. Nothing wrong with that, right? Well, as we'll see, quite a lot of her intentions may have been good, but tactics, well, I'll let you be the judge. She either possessed or outright killed prominent leaders of the Plaguelands, including Mogthal, the leader of the local ogres, the bandit Lord Blackthorn, the Null ruler Snarlman, and the Murloc Puddle Lord. These combined forces caused Vari Mothras to swear loyalty to her and basically become her right hand. With her newfound forces, she slaughtered Deathrock's forces in their sleep. Later, the Dreadlords Balnazar and Garathos were killed, making Sylvanas the undisputed ruler of the Plaguelands from the Undercity. Whew. Her tactics here are no doubt brutal and underhanded, but you can reasonably argue that she did what she had to do and that war isn't a time to be weak. So with that in mind, around this time, the Taurens managed to convince Thrall to allow the Forsaken Undead into the Horde. Probably because she would be a formidable problem for the Horde and would make a much better ally than an enemy. And like many of her partnerships, alliances, relationships, etc., the Forsaken's inclusion to the Horde was out of necessity. Almost from the onset, we can see that Thrall doesn't trust Sylvanas. After Sylvanas slew Vari Mothras, who rebelled against her and attempted to take over the Undercity when she was away helping the Horde in the assault of Angrathar, the Wrathgate. Thrall's decision was to send Kor'kan and Elise to the Undercity to watch over her, or in reality, to keep an eye on her. That kind of distrust doesn't go away. Another point I'd like to bring up is the infamous Forsaken Blight incident. Take a look for yourself.
Very confident, Your Majesty. I seriously hope you do not plan to use the plague. Garrosh has explicitly forbidden it.
You do well to watch your tone, General. Neither you nor Garrosh have anything to worry about. We've ceased all production of the plague, as he ordered. We'd never deploy it without his permission.
I will deliver my report to our leader, then. By your leave, my lady.
Go with honor, General.
My lady, should I order my men to stop the deployment of the plague? Or are we to continue as planned?
What kind of question is that? Of course we're deploying the plague, as planned. Let the Gilneans enjoy their small victory. Not even their bones will remain by tomorrow.
As you wish.
Basically, the Forsaken Blight was a weaponized plague that Sylvanas and the Undead had been developing. She was all, let's use this. And Garrosh Hellscream was like, don't use that. And Sylvanas was like, I'm gonna use it anyways. Alright, I might be paraphrasing a little bit, but that was basically what happened. She used the Forsaken Blight on Galenas and South Shore and Hillsbrad, killing many and then raising them as undead to fill her ranks. Man, that sounds so familiar. Can't quite put my finger on it. I almost feel like someone else did something just like that. To be fair, the Worgen weren't exactly kind to the Forsaken in the first place, and really Sylvanas was only doing what was best for her people. I can totally understand that. And there's this whole issue of trying to apply human senses of morality and logic to the undead, but we'll get into that later. For now though, I think we have to admit that these tactics of killing her enemies in mass and then raising them as undead into her ranks is not just very lich-like, but it's also kind of setting herself up to not be trusted by her followers. In fact, with these instances in mind, even her own Forsaken are starting not to trust her. Take a look at this quote from an apothecary who defected from the Forsaken to join the Argent Crusade. I used to admire her, but something's changed within her. She's not herself anymore. And to be honest, it's hard for anyone to trust her when her motivations are being kept secret and doesn't share her plans with pretty much anybody but herself. Keeping these things in mind, we get a clear picture of, oh wait, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting something. She planned to kill her sister and resurrect her so that she could be welcomed into the Forsaken. Yep, her plan was to have Ryusa killed and for her to join her in the Forsaken. But let's back up for a moment and go back to the trial of Garrosh Hellscream. In short, Garrosh Hellscream was not a good dude, and was pretty much responsible for the Horde fracturing and succumbing to civil war. Anyways, Garrosh was put on trial for his crimes, which seriously pissed off Sylvanas. Sylvanas wanted Garrosh to be executed outright, rather than giving him a trial, and when Horde-appointed defense attorney Bane Bloodhoof gave a pretty damn good defense, she lashed out at him, calling him an Alliance sympathizer. Now, I for one believe in a fair trial for everyone, even for those like Garrosh Hellscream, but even if you don't, calling Bane Bloodhoof an Alliance sympathizer is kind of questionable in terms of her own sanity, we'll say. So, what's she to do? Decides to kill Garrosh herself with her sister's help, of course. It was around this time that Sylvanas got the brilliant plan to kill her sister so they could be undead sister BFFs. Ryusa was like, maybe this isn't a good idea, and ended up telling Anduin about the plot to kill Garrosh, who ended up rescuing him. Sylvanas decided to take her frustration out on woodland creatures. In her eyes, even her own sister had turned on her, and this would mark the final time she would trust anyone or that she would attempt to develop any kind of relationship with. So, with the years of mistrust, torture, betrayal, violence, weaponized plagues, insanity, attempted murder, rejection of a fair trial, and basically being the most tortured character in World of Warcraft history, we don't exactly have a great psychological background for her to be Warchief. With all that in mind, we fast forward back to the invasion of the Burning Legion. Vol'jin, as we know, was mortally wounded during this battle and told Sylvanas that the Horde must live on. She made the decision to have the Horde retreat, leaving the Alliance to face the Burning Legion on their own. Later on his deathbed, Vol'jin made Sylvanas his successor because the lowest spirits told him to. No, seriously, that's the only reason it's given. Throughout her character history, it's hard to pin down her motivations, but she seems to be driven by, number 1, revenge, and number 2, her allegiance to the Forsaken. But even that's questionable, because you could argue that she's only loyal to herself, but I'm willing to give her the benefit of the doubt. And let's not forget that she has a long history of doing things of questionable sanity, who led a long and tortured life. So though, with all that in mind, her distinction as a military general and tactician can't be undermined. Given all of the other racial leaders, she is in fact the most experienced on the battlefield. And within the context of war, whether it be against the Burning Legion, the Alliance, the Scourge, whoever, she and the Horde forces can match the military mind of Sylvanas Windrunner. Yes, she lost Quathalas to Arthas, but other than that, she doesn't really have any big defeats. She took back the Undercity, essentially led the Horde assault on Northend to end Lich King, the list goes on. So yes, as a general, few can stand up to her, but that's just the thing, she's a wartime leader. And so, was Sylvanas Windrunner a good choice for Warchief of the Horde? Kind of. But when peace comes again, one way or another, her long history of being tortured and betrayed, coupled with her insanity and inability to trust anyone and being full-scale, unstoppable, violent revenge lady, is going to destroy the Horde from the inside out. So, for the time of war, yes, absolutely, great choice. Any other time? Hell no. Either way, this is going to bite the Horde in the butt. But if not Sylvanas, then who? Who else would have been a better choice? Other racial leaders are the obvious nominations here, and while none of them are perfect in every way, they have been better choices than the Banshee Queen herself. Even beyond the racial leaders, there are others that may have been better choices both in war and peacetime, which is why on our next Loresday we'll be discussing who should have been the Warchief of the Horde, where I'll be taking a look in detail at some of the more prominent nominations that could have taken the mantle after Vol'jin's death. So what do you guys think? Was Sylvanas a good choice to be Warchief here? Does her psychological torture point to her being a bad leader, or are her actions justifiable and exactly the kind of leader the Horde needs during these desperate times? Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And please make sure your notifications are turned on so that you never miss any awesome World of Warcraft content and streams. Also, you can find me live streaming right here on YouTube every night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Come on in, don't be shy, say hello, and join me for the grind. We'll see you real soon. I'm Troy, and this has been Patchwork.